a co-coordinator of the Hamilton chapter of the Canadian Company of Pilgrims with Colleen. So that's one of the things that we do together. And we also together are Hospitaleros.
How can we help people prepare for what's going to happen? When you've not had it happen, it's too difficult to imagine. But I do think it helps just to plant seeds, even though you don't know what it means.
We talk about this notion of communitas on the Camino, which we might talk about, but it's this notion that we're all together and this basic humanity comes out in people in wonderful ways.
But I would say for people that are afraid they're not going to be able to communicate with people is no problem. I would not let that stop you from going on the Camino.
And we really believe in how important it is to give an authentic, warm, traditional welcome to all the pilgrims. And we want to be able to try and do that for everybody regardless of their language. And we want to make people really feel like this is your home.
The most amazing thing. It was all spontaneous.
Hello, pilgrims. Thank you for watching the Way to Your Why podcast. We are here in another episode, and today we are going to be having the podcast with Colleen and David. We recently met them on an event that was placed in Canada in the University of British Columbia. American Pilgrims on the Camino and the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, they organized this event, and we were part of that. And on the event, we met them, and we invited to talk today in our episode about their experience in the Camino. What do they do? Because they also belong to one of the chapters of the Canadian Company of Pilgrims. So they're going to be telling us a little bit about themselves. So let's start with you, Colleen. So can you introduce yourself and tell us what you do on the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, about that, also your event that happened in the event of the gathering in May?
Sure. Thanks, Efraín. Thanks for having us, and nice to see you again. So I'm Colleen, and as Efraín said, David and I live in Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada. We coordinate the Hamilton chapter of our Canadian Company of Pilgrims here. I also train one of the Hospitallero trainers and one of the editors on our national newsletter, Footprints. I think you might have talked to one of our other editors. So I also I'm an occupational therapist and have a mental health counseling practice here. And actually, about 50% of my practice now is pilgrims preparing to go and returning from Camino, which is interesting because David and I, you asked us about our presentation in Vancouver, and our presentation there was integration, or the alchemy of integration, as David named it. It used to be Camino composting, but that's another story. But it's basically about preparing to go in a way that helps you return a little easier. So and I also have I started a semi-supported approach to Camino, where it's more about capacity building. So people go on an independent pilgrimage, but it's more about the capacity building beforehand. So that's something I've done as well. And I just recently published my first book, Restoring Joy, which is my account of my 2019 pilgrimage, which was a walk out of grief, and specifically about parental alienation, which is something that people don't talk about all that much. And being at the gathering and talking to other pilgrims, it was interesting and really rewarding how many people came up to me and said, thank you for talking about this, because either it's happened to them or somebody they care about. And as much as I knew it was more common than people think, even I was surprised by the amount of people that came up to me and talked about that. So that's the most recent thing I'm doing is moving this book into the world.
Yeah, well, that's great. And actually, I would say, like a priest in the Camino del Norte say, the Camino is the university of life. So it applies to everyone. during the
Mm,
whole life,
mm,
because there are too many similarities. I don't know
yeah,
what you say about that.
yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah, absolutely, Efrain. You're right about that.
Okay, and what about you, David? Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, these days I've been supporting Colleen with the behind the scenes with the book. The two of us are very compatible in the sense that, well, at the moment, so it ebbs and flows. At the moment, Colleen's got a lot of projects underway, as you just heard, and so my support for her comes in the form of, finding people to talk to and supporting her editing the book, of course, but also doing some of that more marketing, promotional type stuff that's more related to my professional background than it is to Colleen's professional background. So I've been supporting her, but in terms of my roles within the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, after doing my first pilgrimage 10 years ago, I got very involved with the Canadian Company of Pilgrims as well. My first initiative was becoming trained as an Hospitalero. Then I became somebody serving as an Hospitalero in Spain. I've subsequently done that another time with Colleen together. So that's something that we're very committed to. And of course, as Colleen said, we're both coordinators of the Hamilton chapter. We now have 20 chapters in the Canadian Company of Pilgrims. And I know that because I'm also the coordinator of all the chapters. And I just added 2 more to the group. So we've been running at 18 for a little while. We've just added 2 more chapters to the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, which is very exciting. And when you combine that with our friends over in Quebec, with whom we have a very close association and an ever stronger association, there's a whole lot of pilgrims up this side of the border, and we love getting connected with you folks down on your side of the border. So, of course, it was nice to see you at the gathering of all of us back in May. I'm also on the board, and I think that's it. It's a lot, but it keeps us
Oh yeah, you both are
very
doing a
busy.
lot.
Yeah, we're doing a lot. We really enjoy it, but we're, as Colleen was saying, we're also doing a bit of capacity building here in our local chapter. In other words, there are so many talented people right in our own neighborhood, and they're becoming more and more involved in sustaining the support for pilgrim life back home here in Hamilton. So that's something that we're committed to doing, is strengthening the group that makes the magic over here in our little part of the world. So those are all the Camino-y things, and then I'm also I'm a consultant effectively and a coach in the realm of developing leaders who lead social mission organizations. So if it's a good cause, might be a not-for-profit, might be a charity, might be a social innovation organization, it might be parts of government. If it's a cause and they're trying to create greater impact for good in the world, that's where I have a particular forte and experience. So I spend my time when I'm doing Camino things doing a whole bunch of that.
Okay, well, that's really, really interesting. So all that you are doing. And then, so talking more about that, so that's something that we are going to work into the Camino Wonders. It's not just a travel agency, like you know,
Right.
it's all about the Camino and how at the Camino you can make a Camino on your life.
Mm,
And there is a lot of new activities that in the next upcoming months we're going to be launching. And the feedback has been amazing. People love what we are doing, we're trying to do, and I will let you know about that once those be public. But there's a lot. One of the things that we're going to be doing that is already public is that we're going to be doing a Camino experience local here in Raleigh, and
Oh, wow.
interesting.
where we're going to be having a mix between how it feels to walk a Camino, and we're going to do a very small section. We're talking about 5 miles approximately, and then we're going to make people feel like if they are in the Camino, but here. And we are also be doing some games, activities related to the Camino, but we're going to having also activities, local activities. I talk with different organizations here, and I have a lot of information from them. So we're going to be having that as part of those activity that we're going to have.
That
That's
sounds
great, Efrain.
really, really interesting. Because we were kind of talking about that this morning, Colleen.
Really, this morning. That's so funny. We know 2 people. One of them, I think you might have just recently talked to. that have come back from the Nova Scotia Camino. So is it Rob Fresnel? I don't know if you're familiar with that name, but he's written a book, and it's basically describes how to set up your own pilgrimage at home. And up until just very recently, actually, we heard him talk in Vancouver. I don't know if you heard his talk.
Yeah, I remember about
Yeah.
it.
And before I heard that talk, I was always a bit, I don't know about this, the pilgrimages in Spain, but he made a really good case for having some pilgrimage opportunities at home, and particularly for people, not everybody can travel to Spain, you know?
Yes.
So there's lots of reasons to do that. And I was really impressed by the people who came back from Nova Scotia with the experience they had. So that's amazing that you're doing
We're
that.
like give it the taste, how it
Yeah.
looks here.
Yeah.
And then maybe that taste made you go there to Spain.
Yeah. Yes, right.
But if not, it's fine too.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yes. We're doing a lot of stuff here locally, and also we're gonna be having on one of the local cities here. We are gonna be having workshops about the Camino as well. So we are very active here.
Nice. And Efrain, did you just say you're in Raleigh?
Yeah, in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, that's great because I've got a good high school buddy who lives just outside Raleigh, and we were talking about the Camino, of course, when we were down visiting them last. And they know now some people in the local area that are quite interested, so I'm gonna have to send them your way for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the link to the activity for the Raleigh Camino experience. That way, if they wanted to sign up, so that more than welcome.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That's great.
Well, is anything else that you would like to add today,
Well,
or
since we're talking about stuff that we're doing, I mean, this might apply or not. David and I just started something we're calling Global Pilgrim Salon, right?
Okay.
Global Pilgrimage Salon. And it's an online free event 6 times a year where we're inviting speakers to come in. Our first one is Christine Petty from Colorado talking about the 88 temples in Japan. And so after we came back from Vancouver, we end up having too many ideas. You can't chase all these ideas. We thought it would be so easy for people we've already constructed the talks. So if somebody like Christine can deliver it online to all the people that couldn't get to Vancouver. So we're going to be doing that every other month, and we'll list that on our Hamilton chapter Facebook page that people are welcome to join. I think we might be listing it on the Canadian site as well. And it's always under the Santiago.ca events page. So people are welcome to join us.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. And that is, when is going to be the first time that you're going to be doing that?
Well, so the first one was August 23rd. Christine does the 88 temples in Japan, and then our next one is in October, and it's a Canadian person delivering that one. It'll be interesting. Yeah. Bloopers and blunders.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you can share again with us the website where they can look into the information.
For sure.
Yeah. So it's just Santiago.ca. And if you go to the events tab, you'll find the details under the Hamilton chapter.
Okay, perfect.
And we'll send it to you.
We'll send you the links.
Thank you very much for that information.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, we're excited. Of course, there's pilgrims and pilgrimages of all kinds all around the world, and they're not just the Camino de Santiago. Pilgrims walking typically and historically all the way all through Europe to a little place in the northwest of Spain. There's many other kinds of pilgrimages, and so we imagine that the series will broaden the horizons of that notion of what is pilgrimage, why people do it. But we just happen to be starting with something that's an old pilgrimage in Japan.
Well, it's really interesting. Thank you for sharing.
한다는 마음으로 내 텅 빈 방문은 닫은 채로 아직도 남아있는 너의 향기 내 텅 빈 방 안에 가득한데 이렇게 홀로 누워 천정을 보니 눈앞에 글썽이는 너의 모습
Let us know a little bit about what the book is about it.
Oh, sure. Well, it's called Restoring Joy, and it's related to it was born on my first walk, my first Camino in 2019, which I went on at a very difficult point in my life. So I was having some real difficulty kind of bringing myself out of grief and feeling actually quite hopeless, and which sounds like a sad tale. But as I've said to a few people, it's the funnest book of grief you'll ever read, because I'm immediately on the Camino and embraced by pilgrims and, the wonderful therapeutic things that happen on the Camino. So it was really walking out of grief and into joy, and so the story itself is me walking on the Camino, but it does drop back in time sometimes about the grief, about the trauma, what brought me there, but it's definitely a story of hope.
Okay, and when you walked that first Camino was the Frances, correct?
Yes, yeah.
And you say it was in 2019.
Yes.
You walked in 2019, but as you know, going to the Camino or wanting to go to the Camino is one thing, and then actually going is totally another one different.
Yes.
And there is a lot of pilgrims that take from 3, 4, 6 months, a year or more to start thinking about something like that and actually walking it.
Mm.
What would you say to those type of pilgrims?
Oh, it took me a year and a half before I actually walked. David's different. He'll tell you his story. But I was a person that I needed to know where I was going. I wanted to walk by myself. So it was important for me to do that. And for me to feel at least a little bit comfortable to do that. I went to 3 different Camino 101s here in Canada, in Toronto.
Okay.
And and the American group, I know they have those as well. Those are free services where other pilgrims help you understand what it's like to live out of a backpack. That was completely foreign to me. I was convinced I would get lost, so I needed to have a lot of input, sort of informal support. I needed to be part of a group, that Darlene's group in Toronto, they meet for walks, and I needed to see people of all ages going and then coming back, going and returning. So I thought, well, they all seem pretty okay. So not everybody needs that much support, but just because of my background, I needed a little bit more. And so my advice would be, do what you need to do. If you need a year and a half to prepare, we sent somebody here to Portugal, Georgina. She's been with us for 2.5 years, I think. And she needed that time. She went when it was right for her, when she felt prepared. So, and then David, of course, he heard about the Camino and he was on a plane in a couple of weeks. So everybody's different. And I would say honor what you need.
Okay. What would you say, David?
I wouldn't add too much more than that, other than to reemphasize the fact that everybody's very different and has different needs for preparation, whether that's for the outer journey, but also for the inner journey. And so maybe if I were to add something, I'd say simply that thinking about what that inner journey might be for you is something that you should actively consider and talk to people about, and maybe even figure out what are you talking about when you say inner journey. I think that's something that can creep up on people when they're walking, when they didn't know that it might happen. And Colleen and I can both think of a couple of examples of incredible stories that we heard when we were hospitaleros in sharing circles, and people who had no expectation of an inner journey being part of a walk with their brother, suddenly discovering there's stuff going on after 2 weeks of walking day after day after day. So that would be one thing I would add in terms of preparation. There's two kinds of journeys to think about. And of course, as you've alluded to at the beginning, there's what do you do when you come home, which is a whole other journey. Or it's the continuation, and some say even it's the beginning again. So there's some serious thought to be put into those things.
If I could just add one thing, sorry, Fran, just to that, because when you said that whole figuring out what the inner journey, what that means, and we've talked about this in our chapter, how can we help people prepare for what's going to happen? When you've not had it happen, it's too difficult to imagine. But I do think it helps just to plant seeds, even though you don't know what it means. So I will often tell people, read some poetry on your porch. I had to do that because I had a foot injury before I left. So I kind of fell into that wisdom. But, there's so many things you can do to just start opening your heart. We were talking to some folks in our group. Actually, I think it was the woman who was accompanying the person in the wheelchair.
Mm.
Do you remember her?
Yep.
And you said, just prepare yourself for, you're going to meet a lot of love. Like you're going to be so surprised by people's generosity.
Mm-hmm.
And she said when she came back, she was glad that we told her that, because I think it helped her receive it quicker,
Mm-hmm.
So you might not understand the whole thing about what is the inner journey about, but just planting little seeds, I think, is helpful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct. And I would add that something like, for example, when we just met at the gathering, that we were around close to 400 people, and most of the people that were there have been walked at least one Camino.
Yep.
And you feel the energy, that positive energy of everyone, because everybody understands what the Camino is. And one example, and I was talking with Becky and trying to get an interview with her for the orchestra, for the Mary Band orchestra, when they sing and all that. Yeah, I don't know if you remember when we were singing, how all people were there. That it's like that happiness is very difficult to have in a group of that size. And that tells you something, that the Camino is right. It's not just that. That there are associations of the Camino in different countries on the world, being Canada and the US, two of them. And that tells you something, that there are a lot of resources and that people want to participate, being volunteer. So that you being hospitaleros as well. So going back, talking a little bit about the hospitalero work that you have done, I'm pretty sure that you have been receiving a lot of pilgrims when you've been on Hospitalero. Do you have any stories that you can tell? Oh, someone tell me this, why I was listening to this kind of problem, and then something was resolved so easily. I don't know. Any kind of example that you may have.
Yeah. Well, you go ahead, David? The brothers.
Yeah. Well, that's
so many stories. Yeah.
There are so many. That one did spring to my mind as well. So the way we usually organize things, I would sit at the desk and receive the pilgrims initially in whatever language that they spoke, and because I have a little bit more Spanish than Colleen, and I speak French, so and a smattering of German, that made some sense. And then Colleen would then show them to the room and get them a bed and explain some of the other aspects of living overnight in our albergue. But one day, Colleen was at the desk, and she was welcoming a very quiet woman. When a man came barreling in the front door, very flustered, verging on angry, poured himself out of a taxi, said, "I don't know where I am, and I don't know what's going on, and I think he's lost his brothers," and it was a very confusing. And Colleen had to just settle him enough so that she could finish her conversation with this very quiet woman who was quite shocked, I think, and then attend to him. Well, the long story made short is that he had been walking with two brothers, younger brothers, and he'd had some sort of a row with them. And once Colleen had very deftly settled him down and assured him that he was seen, that he would be fine, and that we'd figure out whatever the troubles were, he simmered down. But what was so fascinating is that at the particular albergue where we stayed, Bercianos is the town, there's a parochial there, and it's got a few traditions, and one of which is there's an after-dinner oración, or in our case, we organized it as a sharing circle. And we were shocked when this man was the one that stood up first saying he wanted to share something. We didn't actually expect him to be in the circle because he was so confrontational, but he had come with a change of heart, and he wanted to be the first to talk. And he said, I have made a mistake. I was fighting with my brothers, and I was wrong. And he's saying this to a room of, over 15 people. I am not living according to the values that my parents instilled in me. And I realize with this walk that I have been, as the older brother, kind of pushing my younger brothers in ways that they didn't want to go. And I've made a mistake, and I need to reconcile with them. And we were astonished to hear this. It was a wonderful, warm moment. Once we'd gone through the whole circle with everybody else sharing what was going on their caminos in their own languages, there was a spontaneous group hug that took place after that initial breaking open of a very tender moment for him. And it was lovely to see the three brothers slip away after that circle and spend more time together just working out whatever they needed to talk about. But it was a really wonderful example of healing that was happening within a little family that had many years behind each other, and they had perhaps grown a little bit apart.
Yeah, and that's actually that you just mentioned, that is a very good example, because what the Camino is, I don't know what is in the Camino that made that energy so positive, that self-reflection of this person made very quick, because we're talking about few days, because the Camino is, or hours in this case.
Right.
But the Camino is walked in a few period of time, if we compare it with a life time period, that when you're living your life in your country or your state where you live. And sometimes families fight for something that is not even worth it, and they can be without talking for years, months.
Yeah.
And for something very simple, because they have their own life, daily routine, they cannot call the other one, maybe living far away. But in the Camino, you can get that resolved, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
It feels like people come to the door of the albergue in a state of readiness, and it's, if you put some effort into welcoming people in that way, so they feel seen, they feel tended to, then they start seeing each other. You can see people arriving in layers, as I call it, and it makes the space much more hospitable for all this stuff to come up, because the stuff is already there, And it's beautiful to see when David talked about everybody stood up and afterwards and had this wonderful hug. It was the most amazing thing. It was all spontaneous. But the people are, we're making the space, but the other pilgrims, they're helping each other. That's completely apart from what we're doing. And it's beautiful to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's so astonishing about all of this, Efrain, is the fact that nobody in the room had any anticipation that any of this would happen. Many of them were on their first Caminos. They were not primed in any way for any of this to occur. And yet it was perfect in the moment for the people that were there. It's almost as you couldn't have asked for a more skilled therapist or coach to have helped you to that point of reconciliation. It just happened because of the community. I mean, we talk about this notion of communitas on the Camino, which we might talk about, but it's this notion that we're all together, and this basic humanity comes out in people in wonderful ways. It's and we've seen this again and again and again. It's there's no accident that it's happening on this particular path an awful lot. I know it happens in other parts of the world in other settings, but the Camino has this remarkable power. The people who experience walking on the Camino have the power. It just so happens that setting, that ancient setting, is a perfect vessel for this sort of thing to happen.
I suspect that there's probably some energy also running underneath it. I don't know how that happens, but yeah, it's definitely the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you heard that there may be, and I don't know if it's true or no, but I have heard there is an electromagnetic field around the Camino area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've heard that. And whether it's there or it's not, it's there's no doubt that we have seen these expressions of beautiful humanity over and over and over again. In fact, it's one of the things that has drawn me back, and I don't want to speak for Colleen, but I suspect it's the same with her, that we have been back more than once, and it restores our faith in the basic goodness of humans, especially in troubled times.
And I do think that people, as you said, Efrain, talking about energy, people leave their energy behind. We're energy bodies. I don't know too much more about that to speak very well about it, but I can feel it on the Camino. I feel like I'm a bit sensitive to that sort of thing. I'm sensitive to energy. And the Camino, the Frances, anyway, I can't speak to the others. I have heard people say the Frances is different. I don't know if that's true or not, but there's just a lot of good energy on that route, in the people, but it feels like in the space too, in the place you're walking. Outside nature, not just the churches, but just being in nature, it feels important. So when my mother died in 2022, I think, David, you and I had talked about doing a Camino just for fun, because everything was going so well. We were going to go celebrate blessings and all that stuff. And then my mother died. And we were talking before that about maybe doing the Norte or something else. But then when my mother died, I thought, no, I have to be on the Frances. I need to take something of hers with me, and I need to walk that route like a wake. And I don't know that I would have done that on one of the other routes. So I think there's something to it.
Yeah. I'm with you. I have walked 3 Caminos, the short version of each of those. And the day that I've been living there, I cannot compare with any other vacation that I can have, that I have had in the past. And I've been traveling a lot all around the world. But those 3 times that when I've been in the Camino, it's like you just stop and just sit down in the Camino and you just watching, looking people pass. That's super entertaining, and that made you feel very good. So, and then talking with everyone, because we were at the Camino, you start talking, and everybody's so friendly that they can tell you a lot of stories, even something personal they can tell you, and you don't know that person. You're just meeting that in the Camino. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the interviews that I have a long time ago, probably around 3-4 months, and I was talking with an owner from a hotel in the Camino. And he was telling me that he was a corporate person, that he was working in a very good company. I believe that was Telefónica, the company he used to work from Spain. And he traveled all around the world, and his position was very well. But he one day told to his wife and say, "I'm not gonna keep doing this anymore. I need some time for me, and I don't know what I'm gonna be doing, but I not keep having this life, traveling all around, all the stress, all that." So he quit, and he was in a very well position at the time because of the package that he received from the company, but he cannot use that for living his whole life because he was about 50 years old at the time. And he said, "I need to walk the Camino." And he started walking the Camino Frances, and nobody trusting him, especially his family, because he was a little overweight. And he said, "But I'm going to do it." So, and I need those 33 days to think about it. And then I'm going to know what I'm going to be doing next. So he started walking. And one day, today, he was going very well. That he's supposed to arrive on the 10th to Santiago. And with that plan, he could be arriving like 3 days earlier. And he called his family and tell, "Well, because you're gonna be receiving me, you need to go in advance," because they say, "Well, we cannot do that because we have so many compromises, etc., etc." And so he kept walking. At some point, he arrived to an hotel, and then very very late at night, and the man that received him, "I know that you were coming because I received your luggage from a transportation company, and I knew that you were going to be coming. That's why we were waiting for you." And he said, "Yeah, I'm very tired," because it was late at the time that he arrived there. And he started taking some dinner and all that. And on the conversation, the person that was in the hotel told, "Well, you know that we are trying to sell this hotel because we have other compromises, etc., etc. Would you be interested in buying this?" And he say, "Well, so at this time I'm very tired, but tomorrow, because I have plenty of time, because he's going to be arriving earlier than supposed. Tomorrow we can talk about that and then learn a little more about that." So he talked about that, and he say he find his solution. What he gonna need to do next? Buying this hotel, and the service on that hotel. I believe that is the Rectoral of Lestedo. I believe that's the name of that hotel. Changed his life. And when we were there on the 2024. The service that he provided is so well. So it's like he's living for the pilgrims, and the happiness. And I remember that we were with other couple, and the other couple was not staying in the same hotel that we were staying. And he said, "Is that okay? I'm going to take them to their hotel, and then I'm going for them to rest there. Later, I'm going to be picking up them and bringing here for them to have dinner with you." Of course, because he's going to have that dinner in his restaurant. But it's the service. We're not talking about the dinner. It's the service. And at the end, the next day, he took us personally to the other place where we were going to meet the other couple. And we asked, "How much we owe you for all this going back and forward?" But nothing. You don't owe to me anything. And he also mentioned that if a lot of leaders around the world do the Camino, we're so different for everyone.
Yeah. You know what? We've talked about that, Colleen?
Yeah.
Just
if
it's
only.
It's too bad it isn't a rule that anybody who aspires to high office doesn't have to do the Camino first, right? Because what they would experience and how they would look at life in their own life would be so different, so much better.
Yeah.
They don't seem inclined.
No.
But the person that you're talking about, Efraín, that's so beautiful. And we see that. You've seen that probably maybe not exactly like, but that kind of generosity of spirit. They really, they want nothing back from you. It's a joy to help people.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. And I have another question, because you were talking about being Hospitalero, and you, David, you mentioned about the languages. Because there are too many languages around the world, especially on the Camino. There are people from all around the world.
Right.
But you speak French, you speak English, you speak a little Spanish and German as well, correct?
A little bit of German, yeah.
Okay. But then, and other languages too, like South Korean, Japanese, and all that.
I'm getting so good at Korean.
Okay.
So I did learn a few words of Korean in our last volunteer post, but that was Mr. Google was helping me out.
Okay, well, yeah. So how do you deal with that? So I would like to hear from you.
Sure. Well, the simplest is to recognize that there's usually what I call hub people. They're like spokes on the wheel, right? There's somebody who speaks Italian and English, somebody speaks German and English, somebody who speaks Spanish, and one way or the other, we can triangulate the conversation. But I usually find out those people with other language skills and figure out together, how am I going to communicate to the broader group with help of 2, 3, sometimes 4 others, usually 2 or 3. So that's one way. And one example is when we had 40 odd people show up at the door, rather than what we usually did was give everybody the instructions one at a time, I decided, okay, this isn't going to work, and spontaneously assembled everybody on the front doorstep, polled the group for people who had Spanish experience. Well, I wanted to figure out which languages there were and figure out who had the language translation capabilities. And then I lined 4 of us up, and I told them, I'm going to say this, and then it's going to be you, then you, then you. And we're going to go through the cycle, and we're going to
Teamwork.
Beautifully. And it was the most efficient welcome that we gave to everybody. But the first message in all languages, do you know what that would have been? When these people are coming tired to the albergue, there's a bed. There's a bed for everybody.
Then everybody
calms down. But these days, of course, there's modern technology, which we don't rely on too much. But I'll tell you one place where technology is very useful, because Colleen and I, we really believe in how important it is to give an authentic, warm, traditional welcome to all the pilgrims. And we want to be able to try and do that for everybody, regardless of their language. And we want to make people really feel like this is your home for the next hours until 8 a.m. tomorrow. And so we would encounter people with languages that spoke languages we didn't speak. And so Google actually helped me out, because I wanted to convey with the words that Google helped me with, but through my eyes, the genuine kind of welcome that we wanted everybody to feel. Because as Colleen will agree, it's that being seen, being welcomed, feeling like you're here and we see you. You're not just another person. This is not a transaction. When we go to albergues that are donativo albergues, which is the kind of place where we serve, we are trying to do something in a traditional way for people who have an important journey before them. We're trying to help them along their way.
And some other albergues, private albergues,
like absolutely.
You're talking about, that person is giving a traditional welcome.
Yeah.
But I will say the technology. So we, the last group of people we trained to be hospitaleros, I think we haven't quite figured that out yet, but we're working to make sure that people understand how to use their phone, Google Translate, if they're sitting at the desk as an hospitalero. But even sometimes, I think what happens is people will say they understand you and they haven't really understood you. I do that myself. I feel uncomfortable and I want to move along. I want my bed. So I say, yeah. Well, this one guy, and I think we were using Google Translate for this, right? Yeah. Talk about the guy. So this, and we also had a certain time that we didn't want people getting up early to leave. So we want everybody to rest. So we tell everybody this. So one morning we wake up, half an hour earlier than we're supposed to be up to prepare breakfast. And we hear this banging around, and we find this young Korean guy in our bathroom. And David's like, what's this guy doing in the bathroom? And then, but it turns out that he didn't really understand what we were saying. And he was trying to be polite by taking himself away from the pilgrims, away from the dormitory bathrooms, and coming down and using our bathroom. So that gave birth to the pictogram, which is useful for everybody. So it was just a drawing. The sun goes up, what's happening? The sun goes down, what's happening? Everybody understands it. But I would say for people that are afraid they're not going to be able to communicate with people is no problem. I would not let that stop you from going on the Camino. People do a shared sign language, a little bit of English, a little bit of Spanish, and you get better as you go. But there's a lot of people give each other a lot of grace as far as communication.
That is absolutely correct. And then don't be afraid, pilgrims, if you wanted to go to the Camino, that it's not a stop sign at the language, because
it's easy.
Everybody's going to understand you, even by signs. If they can talk to you, you're going to be okay. Even in restaurants. I have recently another interview or another podcast with someone that from a restaurant that's in the Coastal Portuguese Camino. And then she was telling me about the interview that restaurant, before being a restaurant, was a posada. And a lot of history. Because when we initiated the conversation, she told me, well, I'm going to tell you when we opened for the second time the place. Because this place that was in 2013. But this place started in 1700s.
Oh, wow.
So they know about that because they found the documents and all that. How was that before? And she told me this, for example, on this barroom, we have the pork at the time, at the 1700s. And this other one, it was the donkey. And then all that story, and the place looked beautiful. So several things can happen. So don't be afraid. And that person does not speak English or other language, but the place is always full. I have been twice on that place. And I've been seeing, I asked her how many coffees or café con leche she sold a day. She said 375.
Oh, wow.
Per day.
Oh, wow.
And so that tells you something. And not everybody drinks coffee. So she has the orange juice because that over there they have the machine that they squeeze the orange juice and so all that. So there's it's multiple. And then on top of that, there is also with the technology, for the one that like about technology, I heard that meta glasses are going to translate in real life.
No way.
So that means that if both of the people that are talking, both of them have meta glasses, I don't know how it's going to work. I just heard that news, but I believe that I have to be with the application of from Meta. That let's say that I'm talking in Korean, and you're going to be talking David in English, and Colleen is going to be talking in French. We are going to be able to understand everybody, because when I say something, that's going to be on your application, and vice versa.
Crazy.
But then if you do not have, let's say that you do not have the meta glasses, that's fine, because I can show you my phone and you're going to see exactly what I'm saying.
Wow.
That's fantastic.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the good news is that people from all around the world for about 1,200 years have been walking and communicating on the Camino without the meta glasses, but that might help too.
That's excellent. Yeah, people have been working. It's like we just experienced when we were there this last time in between end of April and beginning of May. That I don't know, you saw on the news that there was a power outage.
Oh yes,
Oh yeah,
the power went out completely in whole Spain.
Right.
And for us, it was like the best day ever.
Yeah.
And with no power, and especially in Spain, that in Spain people is not that so much worry for seeing that happen. There's no power. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to be doing, that's fine. So let's live the life.
Yes.
And then we continue walking. We were in the Coastal Portuguese Camino. We went to the beach.
Nice.
We even went into the water with clothes on. And it was like a 10 degrees Celsius. And for us, we're fine.
Yeah.
And then we went out. We were to some restaurant. Even restaurants were open. The only issue was that they cannot take credit cards. But you can pay with cash. And even in a restaurant, we were at 10 p.m. with everything dark.
Mm.
They were serving tapas. They were serving beers, wine with no problem. And we say, well, but we do not have enough euros to pay you. That's okay. Do you have the US dollars? Yeah, we have. Okay. We are like that.
We always find the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so it has been fantastic conversation today. Anything that you would like to add? And let's start with Colleen for people or pilgrims to know about that. What would you like to add, Colleen?
To know about the Camino.
Yes.
Well, I think one of the most helpful things to remind people about is to pay attention. And sometimes the things that stop us from paying attention is anxiety or fear, or we're thinking about the bed, or we're wondering about stuff. And to just have some tool in your back pocket, like whether it's just breathe, just take 3 breaths and look at the flower next to you, look at the person next to you. It will make it's so simple, costs nothing, and it can change your experience to just be mindful.
Yeah, thank you. And if someone wants to buy your book, where they can buy it, and what's the name of the book?
I have it right here, Efrain, because I'm getting better at this. It's Restoring Joy, 40 Days and 40 Nights on the Camino de Santiago. And right now it's on Amazon, so it's available on Amazon in most countries.
Perfect. Thank you. And David, for you, I'm going to change a little bit your question. And because you are part of the board of the Canadian Company of Pilgrims, so do you know how that association born in Canada, how was created? What was the initiative?
Right. So my recollection is like so many small organizations pretty much started around a coffee table. And it was not originally called the Canadian Company of Pilgrims. It was called the Little Company of Pilgrims. Little Company of Pilgrims.
Okay.
And Colleen, was it Ben Lockridge?
So
yeah.
Ben Lockridge,
so there was a priest. There was a priest named Ben Lockridge, and he decided to go on the Camino. He was I believe he was an Anglican priest, and he and others, a very small group, essentially built it from its very early days, and we celebrated our 20th anniversary a couple of years ago. So I think we're up to 25 years now as an organization, something along those lines.
I think we're 30.
We're up to well, maybe there was strong associations with our fellow association in the United Kingdom, the Confraternity of St. James. So there was lessons learned from that group as well. So today it's a booming association that works in Canada alongside l'Association du Québec à Compostelle, which is the association in Quebec. And together we represent all the Canadian pilgrims going over to Europe and on the Caminos to Santiago.
Yeah. And then one thing that I mentioned to other people that I say, well, there is an association of pilgrims in the US and there is another one in Canada. They cannot believe about that because Camino de Santiago is so far away. How do we have association on this side of the planet?
Right.
So how would you explain that?
Well, it's just an extension of the European associations that spread all over Europe. And of course, the Camino itself has been described as one of the unifying forces within the European experience. But then as North Americans and South Americans and people from Asia and down the opposite side of the world, Australia, New Zealand, other places like that, started coming to the Camino, they too realized that they wanted to keep the spirit alive when they came home, and these associations started popping up and have strong connections to each other and to the people, of course, in Spain. And for example, the Canadian Company of Pilgrims is authorized to issue credentials to our Canadian pilgrims, and this is an authorization that comes from the cathedral itself. So these are the kinds of ties that bind us all internationally, and I think that's probably the simplest way to look at it.
And I would say, partly when you were talking, Efraín, about the wonderful feeling and energy at the gathering, I think we come back from our Caminos and we want to keep that, as you're saying, that spirit. And so we look for groups. Sometimes we didn't know the groups were here before we left, and then we come and we find the groups. And just like you're the person who got the hotel, you have a desire to give back, to help others, and that's a great way to do it, is to find a local organization.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, Colleen and David, thank you very much for all the information that you have provided to us today. And for you pilgrims, thank you again for watching us. Please keep adding your questions to the comment sections. That way we can take care about other topics that you would like that we talk about it. And taking consideration, we have different topics that we cover today on this podcast for you to decide when is the time for you to walk that Camino. And buen Camino, everyone.
Buen Camino.
Buen Camino,
Thanks,
friend.